Hare Krishna. So, welcome to the Bhagavad-Gītā online course. We'll be discussing various themes in the Bhagavad-Gītā in short 10 minutes snippets. So, first, let us discuss what is the Bhagavad-Gītā. The Bhagavad-Gītā can be referred to as a Hindu book. It can be referred to as a philosophical book. It can be referred to as a part of the Mahabharata, which is a epic written in medieval in ancient India. It can be seen as a Hindu nationalist book. In fact, there have been a wide variety of interpretations of the Bhagavad-Gītā, wherein the Bhagavad-Gītā has been analyzed in these various ways. If we look at the Bhagavad-Gītā itself, rather than seeing it from the perspective of those who are interpreting it, if we study the Bhagavad-Gītā on its own, we will see that essentially it is a guidebook for living. It is offering us timeless insights into how to choose the right course of action and on what foundations should we make such a choice. So the setting of the Bhagavad-Gītā is itself indicative that it is eminently a book of action. So the Bhagavad-Gītā, there are many books of wisdom and there are many scriptures in the world, but none have a setting as dramatic as does the Bhagavad-Gītā. No book is spoken on a battlefield with just the war about to begin, and suddenly one of the warriors has a nervous breakdown, and to help that warrior regain his nerve, the Bhagavad-Gītā is spoken. So the setting itself is quite dramatic, and now the setting indicates many things. But let's get a background and then we will see how the Bhagavad-Gītā is relevant for us. So the Bhagavad-Gītā is a book of 700 verses and it occurs in the Mahabharata in its 6th book or 6th parva, which is called the Bhishma Parva. So usually it is seen as 23rd to 40th chapters, or depending on some other recensions it may be the 18th to 36th chapters. But essentially, it is a part of the Bhishma Parva of the Mahabharata. So, the setting is that there are two warriors, the two warring brothers, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, are about to fight a war because of a property dispute. The Kauravas, who are depicted in the Mahabharata as consistently unrighteous, repeatedly vicious and intermittently atrocious. So they are consistently unrighteous. They are usually envious, adharmic, and working in ways that are against morality and ethics. And they are occasionally vicious. So they actually at sometimes they do barbaric things which should be out of the pale of normal human conduct, such as wanting to strip a royal lady publicly in an assembly is unconscionable. So they are intermittently atrocious also. So there is one side, we could say in conventional terms, there is a side of evil and there is a side of good. And the Pandavas are virtuous and they are noble, they are charismatic, chivalrous, and they have been repeatedly exploited, abused and deprived by the Kauravas. And after repeated peace negotiations, which prove in vain, which turn out to be in vain because of the Kauravas' obstinacy, the war is now inevitable. So the Pandavas have tried their best for peace. Prior to the Bhishma Parva of the Mahabharata comes the Udyoga Parva, in which the Pandavas are depicted as doing two things. They are striving for the best and preparing for the worst. Striving for the best means they have multiple peace negotiations to try to avoid war. At the same time, while they are striving for the best, they are also preparing for the worst. They are preparing for the inevitable eventuality of war and how to deal with it. So in the end, when after all their peace negotiations on the most accommodating terms fail, then the war becomes inevitable. And the Bhagavad-Gītā's first chapter depicts how both the armies are facing each other, and the leader of the Kauravas, Duryodhana, gives a review of the forces on both sides and tries to conclude that his forces are stronger and therefore he will be victorious. So this comes from the verses 1st to 11th in the to around 12th to 13th verse in the Bhagavad-Gītā, and then the scene shifts from the Kaurava side to the Pandava side, and there is Krishna and Arjuna, and Krishna and Arjuna are confident and their conches are blown, which are traditionally seen as ways of starting the war, signaling the start of the hostilities. So at that time, the Pandavas are about to, their blowing of conch shell proves to be much more influential and victorious in terms of having an emotional impact of shaking and shattering the Kauravas. But as the Pandavas' superiority in terms of their military acumen seems to be becoming clear at that time, Arjuna requests Krishna to take the army between the two battlefields. Take him between the two armies on the battlefield. So now Krishna is God who is playing the role of a charioteer in this particular battlefield. We'll discuss the Gita's concept of God and how Krishna fits that conception in our sessions subsequently. So then at that time, Arjuna is the foremost warrior on the Pandava side. In fact, on both sides, he is among the top warriors. And Pandava's fortune, their victory rests largely on Arjuna's expertise. And at that time, Arjuna requests that take my army in between the two armies. And when the army comes between the two armies, Arjuna sees that all his loved ones, his venerable grandfather, his venerable teacher, they are there on the opposite side ready to fight, and Arjuna gets into an ethical dilemma, a crisis. This intolerable ethical tension pulls at his heart. So should I fight and kill those whom I respect, or should I avoid fighting the war and avoid a bloodshed and live without a kingdom? This is the triggering dilemma which starts the discussion of the Bhagavad-Gītā. So at that time, when he gives a variety of reasons why I should not fight, but eventually decides that I don't know what to do, he turns to Krishna. And then Krishna enlightens Arjuna about what he should do. And in that discussion, there are 5 broad subjects that are talked about. So there is Jiva, Ishvara, Prakriti, Kal and Karma. So these 5 subjects, that is the self, there is Jiva, that is self, then Ishvara is God, then there is Kala is time, Karma is activity, and Prakriti is nature, material nature. So these are subjects which are universally relevant, and the Bhagavad-Gītā soon moves out of its context about whether to fight or not and focuses on these universal subjects. And we will, in our future talks, discuss one by one these universal subjects of the Bhagavad-Gita and how they relate with our existence. What the Bhagavad-Gita says on all these topics and how we can learn from these topics, that is what we will discuss in our future sessions. Thank you. Hare Krishna.